Hey adventurers, so today's going to be another book review or books review because I'm going to be reviewing two books in the same series at this point. And normally I wouldn't do this, but because there are two books in the same series and it's a big series, big long series, and I really need to catch up on my reviews. I'm several months behind. These are from like February, so I'm several months behind on reviews. This is one that I thought was another good one to combine the two reviews in. And as you'll see, there's a few more reasons why I decided to do that, as you'll see as I continue through this review. The reviews are for Full Moon and Grave Peril by Jim Butcher. This is books 2 and 3 in the Dresden Files. So these are fantasy books. They're urban fantasy or low fantasy, and they deal with a lot of, I guess you could call them supernatural fantasy as well, because they deal with the supernatural. That's basically what the series is about, is Dresden, a wizard dealing with supernatural, invading Chicago. Before I get into this review though, I'd just quickly like to say if you're liking what you're seeing from an Erudite adventure, we'd really appreciate it if you would like, comment, and subscribe. Alright, so Full Moon is book 2 of the Dresden Files and Grave Peril is book 3, I already mentioned that. I have heard and been told several times that most people aren't sold on the series until book 3 or after. And that it's not an uncommon opinion to not really love book 2 that much. However, it seems that most people really enjoy book 3. I didn't really enjoy either of them that much, but I enjoyed book 2 more than I enjoyed book 3, and we'll talk more about that as I continue through. Because of the fact that it's been since February since I read Full Moon, it's gonna be, I probably won't have as much to say regarding, or I don't have that much to say regarding Full Moon as I do Grave Peril, but that's also due to the way that the stories, my thoughts on the stories themselves. I have significantly more thoughts on Grave Peril, not just because I read it more recently, but because there's more things in it that I want to talk about, discuss. So these books were never intended for me to be ones that I just pick up and binge the series. The idea was to just pick them up in between things when I needed an audiobook and they were available. So it was like I finished all my other audiobooks that I had requested or already had owned or whatever, and I just needed something new, so I would go look at my library and see if the next audiobook of Dresden Files was available, and usually they were. And so I'd just hit check out the audiobook. I can't think of what the term is that the library itself uses. But they weren't really books that I was intending just to sit down and read the entire series, and this is actually the case with Grave Peril. Full Moon I read in February, Grave Peril I read in June. So 4 months apart easily right there. So that's really what I've been doing with the series. So I'm actually getting to my review of book 3 far earlier than I normally would, because at the rate I'm currently going, it seems likely that my reviews for June will probably be like December. And I really don't like that, so I'm trying, part of why I'm trying to get caught up and part of why I'm having both of these videos or both these reviews in the same video. So the storylines of these books, at least so far, has very much been the generic monster of the week type story, which I think works great for TV shows, but I don't love it quite so much in book form. At least that's my opinion of the few series that I've read that are like that, Dresden Files being one of them. What I can say though is that we get some cool exploration of the monsters. Book 2 is basically werewolves, and book 3 is ghosts. I really like how much Jim Butcher explores the different types of the monsters through the lens of various cultures. So we see various types of werewolves, how various cultures look at them, some of them being primarily wolf, some of them being more man with some wolfish characteristics, some of them being what we would consider true werewolves that transform from a human to a wolf or to a werewolf on the full moon, stuff like that. So there's various types of werewolves that are explored, and I find that idea really interesting, and the execution of the concepts I think are really well done. And of course how all those things tie into the story itself that's being told is one that I really do like. Oh, I guess another part of the genre is a mystery. They're kind of, he's kind of a detective, and so they're kind of mystery books, fantasy mystery as well. I also like the way that the world continues to be built out through each successive story, obviously through seeing more creatures, but also through just exploring more of the world. We also get a bit more explanation of things like various magic systems, or rather various sources of magic. And again, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that we are seeing things that aren't just confined to one mindset, one magic system, one type of monster, one area. Most of it is in Chicago area, but we're starting to see some alternate dimensions, not so much dimensions, but kind of things like a spirit realm type thing. And I like seeing that as well. So there's definitely some things that I'm enjoying about this series. Book 2 was fine, but it really didn't do anything spectacular for me. It didn't really make me like or dislike the main character any more or less, and didn't really tell me that much about if the series was going to be for me or not. It kind of just continued what Book 1 had started. I was enjoying him enough to continue the series, but not really something that I felt, okay, I have to binge the next book and just read the entire series right now. It hadn't gotten to that point. Book 3, however, changed a lot of things for me, but probably not in the same way as it does for most people. I got pretty close to DNFing Book 3, but it was a lot easier for me to, it is a lot easier for me to push through a book when it's on audiobook rather than when it's on physical, because I can just sit, listen to it. I listen to pretty much everything on ×2 speed or 1.75, somewhere between there, depending on if it's a book that is complex enough that I need to slow it down a little bit, then I'll sit at 1.75, maybe even 1.5 if it's really complex, or if it's a day where I'm really having to focus a lot on the other thing that I'm doing as well. And I tend to listen to audiobooks at work, so I'll just sit at work with an earbud in, listening to an audiobook while I'm doing the work that I have to do, and that usually works just fine. And because I have listened to so many audiobooks, it's easy for me just to pick up things as I'm going, and to kind of split my consciousness between what's going in and what I'm doing that is really typing, essentially. And so it was pretty easy for me to just push through the book, even though I wasn't really loving what I was reading. My issues with Book 3 come primarily in how much darker the book is. Ghost stories don't really bother me. Violence doesn't really bother me, and oftentimes darker stories don't really bother me. And in fact, there were some aspects that I really liked in this book, but what got me here was just the evilness that was in this book. The black magic is not something that I like. It's one of the primary things that will make me turn off a story. Whether it's a movie, a TV show, a book, I'll put it away because I don't like it at all, and it's one of the few things that actually gets to me, and I don't want to read it, don't want to have any part in that at all. So the mixture of that plus I feel like the adult content in this book, being sexual and language content, was much higher than it was in the first two books. The mixture of the higher adult content and the black magic was turning me off to the book completely, and I really did not want to continue reading the series or the book. So while Book 2 really didn't change my opinion on the series at all, Book 3 really made me reconsider if I wanted to continue with it. And my opinion of Dresden as a character suffered quite a bit in this third book. I liked him in Books 1 and I liked him in Book 2, and I thought he was an interesting character. He had some issues, but I thought he was a decent character to, like, I wanted to read more of his character. But Book 3 kind of changed that, and just, I don't have any desire to continue following his character at all. There's one thing in this book, though, that I really did quite enjoy, and that is Michael. He's a character that's introduced in this book, but also the faith-based magic. I don't want to call it a magic system because that's not really how the magic in this series is treated, but there is a faith-based magic in this series where your faith in God actually influences how you can deal with the supernatural threats that you're coming in contact. And really, that's the one redeeming quality of this book to me, is just this faith magic and how important something like a character's faith can be to a story and to be to a fantasy world like this. And although I'm not Catholic and I don't agree with a lot of what Catholics teach and believe, it is nice to see some genuine, true faith and belief in God in a book like this, where it is as dark as it is. And it actually is more believable in many ways. There's kind of, if you are in the world of law enforcement or even supernatural law enforcement type thing, there's really two things that you will start believing in. One is, there is a God, I have to believe in God, or else this is just the worst, or else there is no God, because if there was a God, things like this couldn't happen. And that's a lot of times where you end up, is you either get stronger and deeper in your faith, or you just become a complete atheist and don't believe in any God whatsoever. Oh, that's kind of why I appreciate this character in this book so much, is because even though he's Catholic, even though I don't agree with a lot of what the Catholic teachings are, it's nice to see somebody who genuinely believes in their faith and knows that it's actually helping. So it's not really all bad, but wasn't really enough good in this book for me to really want to continue the series. I will definitely need to hear from some of you guys who have continued on with the series, if it stays this dark, or if it starts getting a little bit lighter and not quite so evil, because honestly that's not something that I care to read about, and if the series continues like book 3 was, I have no desire to continue the series. I don't know, it's possible that it was just this book, but I don't know, and there was a lot to do with vampires in this book, and that's something that can very easily get very dark, very evil. So I don't know how I feel about continuing the series. I'm definitely leaning towards not at the moment, but I will need a discussion from other people before I really truly make a decision on that. So that is my reviews of Full Moon and Grave Peril by Jim Butcher. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and have our social medias linked in the description down below. We'll see you guys again soon. Stay well.